this is an appropriate conversation we're going to go right into. I'm very excited to welcome someone I have a tremendous amount of respect for, also consider a friend, Jessica Gelman. Thank you for being here.
Great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was a fantastic presentation.
Thank you. So Jessica Gelman, a few things to know about Jessica Gelman. She is the CEO and co-founder of Craft Analytics Group. It's a technology consulting firm, does data management, advanced analytics, strategic services, everything we just talked about. She just makes sense of it all, and works with some incredible organizations from NFL teams to the NCAA. The other thing that you may know, if you've ever heard of the MIT Sloan Sports Analytics Conference, right? One of the most famous conferences about sports and data. She is the co-founder and co-chair of that event. She was also a former professional basketball player. She played in college, and she was the Harvard Female Athlete of the Year. She's also a flag football coach. And
soccer.
And soccer. And one thing I'll say about Jess and we actually worked together in my first job. And the one thing I'll add related to sports, I was the captain of the Mitchell-Madison Group sports team, the basketball team. And Jessica was on that team. And I would walk out, and if anyone saw, I don't know, date myself, Along Came Polly, Philip Seymour Hoffman, when he's shooting the ball, you know, Jeff from the Warriors can attest to this. I think at the Shoot 360, I think I went 2 for 20. I wasn't warmed up. I'm not necessarily a great basketball player, but I show up at this corporate basketball team, and I had a lot of swagger because Jessica Gelman was on my team. And the other team would look at me, and they'd be watching me warm ups, and like, why are you so confident? And then one of them would say, you have a woman on your team? I was like, yes, we do. Jess would put up like 25 points, 14 rebounds, 10 assists. We won that corporate league like you wouldn't believe. I carried the swagger. She brought the talent. But it's amazing 20-something years later to be here with you and still in your shadow here. And maybe just as a starting point, you know, sports is personal for you. You were a D1 athlete. You know, part of some great Harvard teams. Now you're an executive leader of an incredible company, and you built this incredible conference in sports. How did being an athlete shape your outlook, like your sports experience? How does it inform the way you see the world today, the way you lead?
Well, just as he's like making up those numbers. You're like your memory. I was a point guard, okay? So.
Did you see the talent? You had to score, Jess. You had to score.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, obviously sports are, for all of us, so important in connecting us. But I was a point guard in college specifically, and a lot of what I had to do was thinking about the place that my teammates were in. If someone was injured, they might not be as fast. At that time, the forwards were not being able to play every position, so I had to pass the ball to them in the post. And thinking about how to give them confidence, my coaches would say things like, send a message with your pass. And I feel today, certainly in my job and what I do at Kager, that's a huge part. Understanding where people's strengths and weaknesses are, where they might feel weak, giving them confidence. And then, you know, as importantly, mentoring, coaching is so quintessential to everything that I care about. You know, I've had a lot of mentees through the Sloan Conference and other things like that. And all of those skills I kind of honed as an athlete, you know, since I was a kid.
You know, and Jessica, you're one of the leading pioneers around the use of sports and data analytics more generally. What led you to focus on that and recognize the importance of it well before a lot of people maybe saw how transformative it was?
You may have seen that I'm only 5'8", and not that fast. And so I had to have things that I knew or ways of understanding differently. I grew up outside of Chicago, following Michael Jordan, and I couldn't understand why he always performed so much better in pressure situations. And I wanted to try and do that and be a pressure player. And so when I was in college, I studied psychology at Harvard, and we had to run an experiment. And so I did mine on a local high school basketball team to understand what are the characteristics of people who perform better in pressure situations. We can go into the details of that at some other time, but I think the specific key point is that it taught me about test and controls. And that all of the statistics that I had to do as a student, and I was trying to also apply it obviously in real time to the success of the teams that I was on, led me to understand and think about applying that to fan engagement, customer engagement, and that's really where I took that knowledge and applied it into the business world. So this thing that I was like really passionate about really since I was maybe 12 years old, evolved into something that I was applying in my day-to-day life, first at the Patriots. So I think I have worked with the Kraft family for 23 years and ran the business operations for the Patriots before I approached them with the concept of what is now Kager. And I can share a little bit more about that too.
So let's talk about, so you have this general belief, you grew up believing in the power of data and what it could do. So
I had to.
You had to. It was the advantage that you were able to create. And now, so maybe talk about what Kager's doing and the kind of work you're doing for the NCAA or NFL teams. Like, what do you exist to do, and what is it that how are you harnessing data to help those kinds of organizations?
I mean, at the core of everything, it's about understanding who our customers are. I mean, much like all of you are doing. And there's, I'll just give like the very high level. There's two parts to our business. We predominantly work with professional teams and colleges. You mentioned the NCAA. But we're an actual data warehouse. And so we're integrating, a sports team is really like 6 different businesses, which is not, I mean, having just watched this, I coach teams, my kids are on teams, so I certainly know league apps as well. Like, there's so many disjointed parts from a technology perspective that you need to bring together to make it easy and simple. Well, that's the same thing for many sports teams or the NCAA. And so we're integrating all of that data, creating the golden record of how a customer is engaging, and then we're trying to help teams or leagues or whomever it might be give the customer the right thing at the right time. And then we do a lot of consulting, because what we found is that when people have the data in whatever form it might be in, they might not know what to do with the data and how to use it to drive the business. So I'll give you like 2 examples.
Yeah,
so, one, the NCAA, obviously there's so much going on with college sports, which is of course impacting youth sports too. And so we are building, or we've built across all of their 90 championships, we're integrating all of the ticketing data. And and all of them have different systems, all of these locations all around the United States. And what the NCAA didn't know or wasn't able to do previously was like, who are the people that are coming to games in specific locations? Where are fans from this university, and then when they come to that location, how are they cross-selling? We're doing some really incredible work with them on data sharing with the member institutions, which is their language for colleges and universities, on when a fan comes to an NCAA championship, wouldn't that be really valuable for the college to know, so that they can try and sell them tickets or get them to be donors or come to a sport that the college might not know about. So a lot like that. And so they've been up on the platform for about a year now, and they've grown their overall customer base by over 50%. And that's because they're engaging the customers in the right way and giving them more of what they actually want. So that's kind of the NCAA, and it's something we're really proud about. Because I think we all know the potential risks of what's happening in college sports, and some of the sports maybe not getting the support financially that they once had. So helping the NCAA generate more revenues to then give back to the universities to keep the sports going is critical. The NFL, is a really, we do a lot of different types of work with them, but I think for the purposes of here, and this is probably some of the work that you'll get into eventually, is segmenting of the different customers and understand. I do coach youth sports, and I am going to youth sports events a lot. But like, what does a family need versus maybe an older kids or whatever it might be. But doing this fan segmentation, we did this thing across the entire league to identify who are the fans that are going to games that are not from that particular market. We called it non-home fans. And then the thinking was, how can the teams go and market or engage those fans with specific types of offers and or ticket packages that would drive more value. And then we would go and work with a couple teams specifically to help them, reach those fans in a different way. And so, those are 2 pretty good examples, I think, of getting the data into a good spot, getting it clean so you can do actual real work. Ultimately, in some cases, AI. I think the fact that you guys are leveraging AI today is really impressive, because I think most folks are in the very early stages of AI, and we can get into that too.
Yeah, and just one thing, if you just think about this, I think, and I want to bridge this to you sports, this idea of going out of market, like you have this idea with segmentation, if you have all the data in one place, things that may seem obvious, like I have people that are playing soccer in my organization. But if all of a sudden you say, well, what families in my organization live more than an hour away from where it takes place? Because if you knew who those people are, they might have, wow, they have a real big commitment. You also might figure out other ways of doing things for them. Well, people are traveling that long. Could you offer something to those families if they're coming all the way there, so they're not having to commute as much? Like the intelligence you have lets you ask different kinds of questions. And if you think about it, you're a flag football coach. I think one of the reasons you're here is you're eager to think about, well, what's the youth sports industry doing? If the NCAA is getting their act together, we've often seen technology then makes its way to the grassroots. What advice would you have about how these youth sports organizations who are now having this challenge of evolving into businesses, right, for-profits or nonprofits, to use this technology, how could data help that evolution of those clubs? How should they be thinking about data and analytics? We'll get to AI in a second, but how might that matter to these organizations from the different lenses and hats that you wear?
Yeah, I mean, in some of the conversations that we've had, I mean, first, of course, there's the data sets that you all provide, which is really critical and informative. And I think for the youth organizations to be able to take that data and actually ingest it, again, I'm not sure what the technology speak is of everyone in the room, so, but to take that data, and then there's other data sets that you can pull in that are maybe not part of what League Apps offers, and doing the cross mining of information. I know, for example, in some of the leagues that I'm coaching, I have to take a number, and sorry, I know you guys probably have some of this functionality now, but I have to get certified and 3 different times, and they lose it, and I have to go to this website and that website, and it's really complicated to be a coach. It's hard, and then I think about all of the kind of other experiences that are going on. So the main thing is, I mean, a lot of the things that you already said, which is aggregating the data and trying to improve the experience of not only the parent, but the customer. And I think data can help provide that kind of insights if you know how to mine it in the right way. But I think for the youth organizations, what are simple ways that you can collect more information? Are you doing surveys? Are you getting feedback on what the experiences are? How are you aggregating that information? One of the things that AI can enable, if you're doing surveys, is really quick sentiment analysis. We're doing that from like sales calls for sports teams to help to pull those into models that we're building to help with targeting and lead scoring and things like that. So I think the downstream potential ways the data can be used should open up and be more accessible.
And just to maybe stand this, there's like a progression where, in many cases, the progression of youth sports has been, my job is to keep the parents far away. I just want to coach. But in reality, the parent is the customer, which is a complicated dynamic, because if you keep the customer away and you want nothing to do with them, right, which for good reasons why people might have that mentality, it makes it really hard both to partner with them, but also to build your organization and deliver what's valuable to them and their families. So what's the way you think about data and how you understand a customer? Like if someone's here and saying, okay, I now recognize the parent as a customer, I want to understand them better. You mentioned surveys as an example, but what's the approach to think about where data and analytics help you really understand what that customer wants?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very much, we call it behavior-based marketing. So what are the actual actions that people are taking? So if you're sending an email, as an example, to sign up, like, are they responding right away? Are they waiting until the last minute? Are they always paying late? How can you use the activities and behaviors? Are they only engaging and accessing via mobile app? Are they responsive if there's a last minute change of location or weather? So you just have an understanding of how people are engaging in the different forms so that you can address and think through that. I'm like a slightly older parent, so I do happen to be tech savvy, but I think that there's a lot of parents who might not be. And they're used to getting emails or they want to commute via text. So like, what are the different channels that you can and should be engaging to help all the different players? And I think the stuff that you talked about a little while ago about some of the underprivileged communities that you're helping, like that's a whole other dynamic. And how best to engage them, and what do you need specifically? Like we talk a lot about the right product at the right time for the right customer, and so through the right channel. And so thinking through what are the pain points that parent might have, and how can you solve on that with the information that you have. And I guess I'm thinking like very, very narrowly, because my children are, not on the massive talent cycle. They're in the local youth for the town. But I mean, when my son was on like a travel soccer team, like it was hard going, 2 hours away. And of course we knew the kids, but like even just like carpooling, think about like an Uber something for youth sports. I mean, not really. I know there is a Uber for over 13, but like the concepts of helping the parents engage with one another if they're not in the same schools or whatever it might be. Like there's just so many different avenues to think through. And I think that AI might help us think through some of those concepts, but at the baseline, it's thinking about what are the specific behaviors and that you can capture, and how we talk about it as like data access, like can you get the data management, can you pull the information together across multiple sources and create, in some cases, a golden record to understand that customer holistically across all the ways they touch you. Metric creation, which is like creating metrics to understand and quantify who that customer is, and then the data application, like how are you going to use that data to drive change? And I can like give an example if that's helpful.
Yeah, so maybe let's do that. And I think just one thing to underscore is like the idea of behavioral data, right? There's the data that someone might sign up on a registration form and tell you, but behavioral data is what are they actually doing, which can be really valuable, because what they say and what they do, there often is a lot of value, and maybe people don't pay enough attention to the doing part. But maybe kind of give that example.
Well, I'm gonna talk about the data access, but that one that you just gave, when this was a piece of research we did for the Patriots way back when I was with the Patriots organization, and we did a survey to understand like what were the favorite sites that people went to on the Patriots.com. Now, of course, it would be mobile, and no one went to the cheerleader page. And then, of course, it was the second most visited page. So what people are comfortable sharing versus what they're actually sharing, or what they're actually doing, and finding what is the information and why they might not share that is super important. So there is an art and a science. But like a metric creation example is, we think about it, for example, and this actually is pretty relatable, but we will look at people coming to games and what their behaviors are to try and understand their likelihood to renew as a season ticket member. And we have multiple binomial models. If we're going to lose them, we want to downgrade them, all of these different things. But we're tracking all of their behaviors, including if they are writing in with a customer service issue, or something has happened in the game. Of course, now we can do facial recognition, which we couldn't do even just a few years ago. And we're aggregating all of that information to help the service team know when and how to outreach. So for all of you, if you have someone who has been maybe in your youth ecosystem and starts to exhibit behaviors that they're not coming to the games, or whatever the new things, data points that can be collected, like parent attendance at games would be a really interesting thing to collect. Then you can take or try to take specific actions to engage them. Maybe they don't want to be on the travel team. Maybe they want to just do like every Thursday night, go and play soccer. And that's okay and that's good. And I think we all know that just playing sports, it doesn't need to be up at this level, but just playing and learning how to communicate, engage, and define rules, and that's what we want our kids to be doing. And maybe some of them will be at the advanced level, and yeah, let's give that path too, but figuring out the different paths and data can help inform and get kids and parents on the right path.
So let's talk about AI, and maybe in a few ways. One is, how profound is it? You've been in this industry for a while. Obviously, AI's been around. Where are we at, or where is it going? Is maybe the first part. And then we can also then talk about how should we think about its impact for youth sports.
I mean, it's very early days. I mean, it's become huge. I liked your comparison about the past 2 years, and I think that the last 2 years have been very significant. So we think about it along kind of 3 dimensions. First is AI-enabled technology. So that would be something that you have been using that is leveraging AI in some form or fashion, but it's not what we would call AI native or generative AI. That's really important. I think of that as kind of like the descriptive stuff of what it is you might have interest in knowing. So you could just ask a couple questions and get some information back, provided that you have really good, clean data at the baseline. Because otherwise, you're just putting lipstick on a pig, right? You need to have and make some investment into cleaning your data. It doesn't need to necessarily be a data warehouse. You might not have enough data. Might not have the infrastructure. But getting stuff into a good place is an important effort. The generative AI would be things that, it sounds like a lot of the work that you guys are doing, which is being able to do personalization at scale. So it's not like you're asking a question and it's telling you, like giving you projections into the future. It's basically collecting lots of information and helping with some of the processes. To be honest, that's a lot of the work that you maybe would have done. Here's the different answers that you could have, and you would have done that work and scripted it out a little bit more, but now it can go and pull and you don't have to put it into specific orders. And then the last is like really what we're starting to see now, which is agentic AI. That is the like Terminator type stuff, if you guys are of that age, where it's thinking and all of those things. Like we're in the very early days of that type of work, and but it's here and it's coming, and my kids, I'm sure like many of you, like are being said, this is a homework project that you can use AI. This is one that you cannot. So like that's kind of the process of what we're seeing. But generally, we're doing a lot of work with several leagues and helping to write some white papers in this space as they're thinking about it. I think we just want to get going. So like more in that AI-enabled, descriptive, that's kind of the stuff that really most of you should be leveraging, which is like to help with customer service. So you don't.
Can you give some examples? If you were in charge of a youth sports organization and they're like, okay, they have clean data, might be some of the things that they do. You experience this as a parent related to where AI could be really impactful, or where they might have a lot of leverage.
Yeah, customer service is the baseline, and I think many of you probably have heard about it. Oh, I thought I was speaking to a human or something like that. But there's a lot of different systems out there in the professional sports space, Conversa and other things like that people are using to basically, like if you have, we think of it like a funnel. So if you have 5,000 calls that are coming in, I hope it's not that many for all of our sakes, whittling it down, getting the baseline answers and whittling it down to like the 10 that require, leadership's intervention, right? That's kind of the intention behind it.
So one of the things, you're a parent, right? And you're a customer. And maybe you're well understood or not well understood by the organizations you're part of. When you have a lot of thoughts about when you see where youth sports is going, what do you think is being missed right now? We're going to cover this at the end of the day too, but if someone had really good data on you, what would be the understanding about you, or maybe other parents that you think isn't as well understood or well served right now by youth sports organizations?
Well, I'll start with that I have like 4 different youth sports apps on my phone, which is its own. Which sport is this? And so that
we're trying to solve that.
Yeah. So keep acquiring. Thank you. But I think the different levels of what people want to do. Like I coach multiple teams, and most of the people I work with are like, how do you have the time? Because it is a huge commitment, but it's something that sports has had a huge impact on my life, and so I want to try and give it back and teach the things around sports. But I think actually understanding a little bit of the history of why it's important and what are the things, like I don't have any expectation for my children to play even high school sports, if I'm honest. I just want them to play and learn how to be on a team, and I have like a story that I can share about something like that just happened this past weekend, but and know how to have conflict and be out of a computer screen and just be bad at something and maybe learn new skills and get better over the course of the season. And I think that's maybe understanding the mindset of the parent and the kid and what does that mean? And as a coach, I have gotten coaching where I had to take some lessons, so I get a little competitive. I think it would be helpful if parents got some, if there were tools for the parents to help them with understanding the paths that you can take.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Maybe as a getaway, you can work her story into this. I remember going to the MIT Sloan conference and being shocked by, for the beginning, it was like all these data analytics people, but they weren't in charge of the teams. Then like 5 years later, everyone, the data analytics people, just ran the teams. So what advice would you give to the leaders that are in the room? How should they think about data and related to their leadership? And more generally, how should they think about their leadership and what matters if they're trying to grow and scale an organization?
I mean, I think overall, analytics or data can feel scary. And I think the point is that like the basics of analytics is just like thinking about like a season ticket member. It's like, how long have they been a season ticket member? Where are their seats? It's just like the basic descriptive information of who the people are that you're engaging with so that you can better engage with them. And the AI, I think, is like throwing in another confusing hurdle for people. So to me, it's about taking a step forward, getting a quick win. There will be people who will be open and want to do it. Like, grab those people. Don't try to fight the uphill battle. Engage the people who have interest in analytics. And then, for me personally, analytics and comfort with data has been, a platform and mission for me to help people who historically have not been in sports or in leadership roles to gain comfort with it so that they can advance into leadership roles within the sports ecosystem. And if I can just finish with this story, I might get a little emotional, but I just want to talk about the importance of youth sports for me personally. Ooh, okay. So my son's football team, I mean, we suck, but it's fine. And they're learning how to get through that. This past weekend, and we knew that the quarterback of the team, we knew his dad was sick, but we didn't know how sick, and he unfortunately passed away. And the response from the kids on the team to support that kid, and how we talked about being on a team, and we talked about supporting from the sideline, and so then to see it at play there, that's the point of, I think, why we all coach or why we play or why you're all doing. So I'll just thank you guys for everything that you're doing to help youth sports.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you sharing that. Well, thank you for helping us connect the power of data, the power of sports. Another round of applause for Jessica Gelman.